don't want to do anything to scare your children. That's the last thing we want to do.
That's a direct order. Do it now.
He's been put down, ripped off, cut open. Now he's unleashed. The American insurgency starts now. This is Rusty Humphrey's Rebellion Radio.
Well, hello and welcome. It is the Rusty Humphrey's Rebellion. It's powered by usaradio.com and trendingtodayusa.com. Brought to you by our good friends at Australian Dream. We'll tell you about them in a minute. Got a great show for you here on the Rusty Humphrey's Rebellion. First of all, did an interview with Michele Bachmann. We'll play a little bit later on the program. And this interview has gone viral. I'm telling you, millions upon millions of people have read this article. Maybe you have. You probably heard a clip of it if you found it online at Western Journalism or conservativetribune.com. But it's an interview with Michele Bachmann, and in the interview, I ask her, have you ever been alone with Donald Trump? Yes. I mean, Congressman, you're a good-looking woman. What happened? And she tells the story. It's interesting, so you're going to want to stick around for that. Newt and Callista Gingrich are here as well. And Newt, of course, he is a former Speaker of the House, knows everything about politics, really has some great insight. And you're going to hear from him about his new book, Treason. Callista has a new kids' book that's kind of cool, so we'll talk with her about that. And the famed attorney and college professor Alan Dershowitz. So we're getting kind of the other side of the story, too, the people who are supporting Hillary and why, and what is his reason, especially from a legal point of view. So we'll get to that in just a bit. I will say I am just disgusted with the media. I'm about done with NBC, which is owned by Comcast, and their tentacles of all of the different properties that they own, MSNBC and Inside Edition, and is it Inside Edition? Anyway, they've got just all of these shows and networks, and it's all hidden under this umbrella of NBC, and they are no longer just trying to report on an election. They're trying to manipulate it, and it's wrong, and it's disgusting, and we'll talk about that coming up in just a bit. If you haven't heard the Rusty Humphrey's Rebellion in a while, what I do is I play you some of the best interviews of the past few days from my show Trending Today USA with Rusty Humphreys. It's a great show, fast-paced. It's giving you the news without a ton of my comment or without a ton of my opinion. The Rusty Humphrey's Rebellion, this podcast, this is more of my opinion. I tell you what I think. What do I think? I think this election sucks. How about that? I think Hillary Clinton's a crook. How about that? Am I loving Donald Trump right now? No. I do believe he'd be a good president. I do. Yeah, but his ego. I think his ego helps us. What about his being a pal with Putin? Well, first of all, he's not a pal with Putin, but everything we've done with Russia over the past couple of generations, that hasn't worked. So maybe a couple of alpha males who care about their egos more than a lot of things, maybe we get those two guys in a room and maybe something good could happen. How about that? I do know one thing. He's got no respect for Hillary, no respect for the Democrat Party, and at this point, no respect for America. So we got to do something different, don't you think? Next time on the program, I'm going to have, what are we going to have? We got some good stuff. I got to get Danny Williams Clinton on a podcast. Danny is a guy who claims that Bill Clinton's his daddy, and I'll let you decide if you believe him or not. See, unlike the mainstream media, I investigate, I look into the stuff, I let you make up your own mind, as opposed to them making up your mind for you. I will make up your mind for one thing, and that is if you have arthritis pain, there is really only one product that really works, and it works well, and it works every single time. It's called Australian Dream Arthritis Pain Relief Cream. They also have a back pain relief cream. And what's great about both of these products from Australian Dream, first of all, it does what it says it's going to do. Helps relieve pain. It does it without burning, without being smelly, and without being greasy. All of those things are terrible with other products that are similar. You can find it everywhere. Walmart, Walgreens, your favorite grocery store. Just go in there and look for Australian Dream. It's a square box. And if it's not there, then you should just shop someplace else because that place pretty much stinks. If they don't have Australian Dream, why would you even go there? That's what I think. Anyway, Australian Dream really is a great product. I buy it. I suggest that you do too, whether you have arthritis pain or back pain. Go and find it. You can go online, www.australiandream.com, australiandream.com, or just go to your favorite store. Pick up that Australian Dream Arthritis Pain Relief Cream and Back Pain Relief Cream. You ready? Let's get to it here. It's the Rusty Humphries Rebellion. I always love having this guy on. He's one of the smartest guys I know. We can talk about all kinds of things. Newt Gingrich is here, former Speaker of the House. His wife, Callista, is also here. She's an author. Newt, Callista, welcome both of you to Trending Today USA. How are you?
Thanks for having us, Rusty. We're great.
We're really looking forward to chatting with you.
Me too. First of all, Callista, Ellis the Elephant is back. Is it hard or easy to write a kid's book?
Well, it has its challenges, but it sure is a lot of fun, and we really try to make history enjoyable and accessible for the kids.
I mean, because sometimes people go, oh, it's just, writing a kid's book, it takes like 10 minutes. I'm guessing it's a lot harder than people would think.
Oh, yes. We have to outline it and think about our illustrations and think about our text, and our text has to rhyme. So, it takes a good part of a year to really put one of these books together.
Come on.
It's the truth.
Is that right?
That's right. From start to finish, we meet our deadlines in a very methodical way, and I think that this book is actually a delightful book. It's Hail to the Chief. It's the 6th volume in the Ellis the Elephant series, and it's all about our American presidents and how they've led our nation throughout American history.
And Newt, does it take you as long to write a book like Treason as it does for Callista?
Let me just share with you this, because I'm awestruck watching Callista work. Remember, she's writing for 4 to 8-year-olds about history. She has to find words they can understand. Then they have to rhyme. Then they have to fit with pictures that Susan Arciera does that are just wonderful. And all this stuff goes through, I tell people 1 page of her book is about a chapter of mine. That's a reasonable way to think of it. And it's really remarkably creative work to put it together. And of course, fiction is just fun. And I've been very blessed in writing Treason to have a former Washington Post reporter, Pete Early, who's a great writer and knows a lot about the topic. And he and I had a lot of fun writing Treason because we wanted to have an exciting adventure story which would both have politics and terrorism, weave them together so they feel like the morning newspaper, and then tell a story that should sober every American based on what we now know from the Soviet era, that the Soviets had a very substantial number of agents in the American government. And we said, well, gee, what if there were a couple of traitors who were loyal to ISIS but pretending to be American workers? And what if they were fairly high up, say in the FBI or in the Department of Homeland Security? So I think Treason, the people who read it tell me that some of them stayed up almost all night, because once they got rolling, it was like a train going down the track, and they wanted to know what was going to happen in the next chapter.
That sounds awesome. Again, and the book comes out, is it today?
Came out yesterday.
Yeah, it came out yesterday. It's called Treason.
And so did Hail to the Chief.
You got them both.
Charging down the road. So,
all right, Callista.
We tell folks there's an adult read and there's a 4 to 8-year-old read.
And mine is less scary.
So I should probably start off with Hail to the Chief, just so I'm on track. The 4 to 8. I'm kidding. Callista, I got a line for you. Here's something for the next book, because you wanted to make it so that 4 to 8-year-olds can read it, right?
That's right.
How about try this one? In England, they call my mother Mum. Her favorite flower is chrysanthemum.
That's a little tricky.
I'm kidding.
But it's a good start.
All right, yeah, I guess I would not be a good children's author. I would not be good at that. Newt and Callista Gingrich here on Trending Today USA. All right, how bad, Mr. Gingrich, has this past week been? Can Donald Trump pull it out?
Well, I think at one level it's been embarrassing. It's been, frankly, for those of us who support him, a little disturbing. The things he said on tape 11 years ago were not appropriate and frankly, were disgusting. On the other hand, I think he's grown over the years, and I think the person who walked into that debate Sunday night had come to grips with what he had to do, understood that he had to apologize to the country, but also understood that what he stood for, the difference between he and Hillary Clinton. As a friend of mine said today, we can concede that Donald Trump at times is clunky if they will concede that she is corrupt and dangerous. And I think that's sort of the truth. Trump is a businessman, entrepreneur, spent his life in construction. He's not one of those Wall Street finance guys. And he has a little bit of the crudeness that sometimes comes from that. On the other hand, he is very hardworking, very courageous, very determined to save America. Hillary, on the other hand, is a Yale-trained lawyer, has been active in politics for 46 years since she worked for Joe Lieberman for the state senate back in 1970. And I believe she is the most corrupt and the most dishonest person ever to run for the presidency to get to the nomination of a major party. And I think she would be extraordinarily dangerous as president in terms of what she would do to American civilization.
As you look at this, I mean, certainly you're a historian. I can't remember a presidential campaign this nasty and this where the media is trying to basically pick the president for us, or am I missing something? Has it been worse in the past?
No. Look, this year what you've got is the news media isn't for Hillary Clinton. The news media is Hillary Clinton, and the WikiLeaks, of course, are proving that as we're beginning to find all these emails and all these conversations being reported where the news media was in the tank time after time after time helping Hillary. But let me tell you why I think she will lose. I'm just going to give you one simple story. She goes to Brazil. This is in WikiLeaks. She goes to Brazil in 2013. She gives a speech to a Brazilian bank for $225,000. The same bank had already paid Bill $400,000 8 months earlier. So she gives this secret speech, which is not supposed to ever become public, and WikiLeaks picked up on an analysis of it by her own staff. And in the speech, she says, and it's a very important word, she says, my dream, now dream's a big word, my dream is of a Western Hemisphere without borders. Now, I want you to think about this at a practical level. That means the MS-13 gangs, who are the most murderous gangs in the world in El Salvador, could come without borders. That means that the Mexican drug cartel could bring Mexican heroin without borders. That means that the FARC in Colombia could bring cocaine without borders. And it means 600 million people to cross our border because there'd be no border. I think if we simply got every American to understand, this is what she said in a secret speech to Brazilian bankers. This is the real Hillary Clinton. I don't think she could come anywhere close to winning this election.
Newt Gingrich is here, also his wife Callista Gingrich. They both have books out right now. One, Callista's book, it's a kid's book, Hail to the Chief, and a brand new book by Newt Gingrich. It's called Treason. They're both in the bookstores right now. Mr. Speaker, I'm very nervous about this election, but then the guys that we're supposed to, we're all supposed to be working with, Paul Ryan and, the establishment guys, they've turned their backs on Donald Trump. Why do they hate him so much?
I think they're just scared. I don't think they hate him so much. I don't think they get it. Donald Trump understood and tapped into the level of anger the American people have about the corruption and the destruction of Washington, D.C. When you learn, for example, that the Veterans Administration, after 4 years of talking about reform, the Veterans Administration has a emergency line that you can call as a suicide emergency line. 1 out of every 3 calls goes to voicemail. Now imagine, you're a veteran, you're alone, you're disheartened, it's 2 a.m, and you think, well, I'm going to talk to somebody. You call your government and you get voicemail. And I think the average American knows the whole system is that sick and that destructive, and that's why they picked Donald Trump. And I think that, frankly, people like Paul Ryan is a very smart guy. But he actually thinks he can make the system work, and he can't. You're going to have to fundamentally overhaul it, much as Scott Walker did in Madison, Wisconsin, and you're going to have to take on the established entrenched unions and the established entrenched left-wing lobbyists, and it's going to take somebody who's willing to fight. And the one thing we've learned about Donald Trump is he is willing to fight.
All right, Newt Gingrich, Callista Gingrich, thank you so much. You've got a bunch of websites out there. Where would you like people to go?
We do. If they want to go to gingrichproductions.com, they can find Treason as well as Hail to the Chief and many of our other products as well.
You guys have some movies, documentaries too, don't you? Or are you working on it?
We just finished The First American this year. It's a movie about the life and legacy of our first president, George Washington.
Well, very cool. As you both know, I'm a big fan and supporter of you guys. I love both of you. I wish you nothing but the best, and I'm going to go buy and pay full retail price for both these books.
You're great. Now, that's an American.
Newt Gingrich, thank you so much for being here in Trending Today USA. Thank you. So before a crowd of supporters in Columbus, Ohio this week, Clinton said if Trump wants to compare his 30 years with hers, he can bring it on. Bring it on! Here to talk about it, Alan Dershowitz is here. He is a law professor and had a bunch of movies made about his life. He's an author. His latest book, Electile Dysfunction, a guide for unaroused voters. Professor Dershowitz, welcome back to Trending Today USA. How you doing?
I'm doing great. If you want to get my book, you get it as an e-book. It's right online. You can get it as a Kindle book, or you can get it from Amazon. It's short. It's 110 pages, and it won't tell you who to vote for. It'll tell you how to think about who to vote for.
What is it that people aren't thinking about properly when they think about this election?
Well, there's so much hatred against both candidates. They both have such high negatives that people, for the first time really in modern American history, most Americans are casting a negative ballot. They're casting a vote against Hillary Clinton or a vote against Donald Trump. And that's very unhealthy in a democracy. And I think they're looking more at personalities, backgrounds, than policies. The debates themselves were low on policy, high on personal attacks, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And when I go back and think about some of the earlier debates in American history, it's quite disappointing.
I'm looking at your book and have before. You talk a lot about Israel in this book, and I understand you're a big supporter of Israel, as am I, and I think one of your greatest books was The Case for Israel. I've learned quite a bit from it. Why do we care about Israel, though, in our personal, in the American election? Why should that matter?
Well, it shouldn't matter all that much. I think we should care more about fighting terrorism in America. Look, Israel is a great ally in fighting terrorism. It helped us to develop Iron Dome. It helped us to develop all kinds of cyber defenses. But, I don't vote based on Israel. I vote based on what's best for the world, what's best for America. Israel is a great democratic ally. And if we were to abandon Israel, it would send a terrible message to other allies abroad. I don't think it's going to happen. Israel is a bipartisan issue, and both candidates support Israel. But
you support Hillary, but Barack Obama has said he was going to support Israel, but has not.
Yeah.
The Middle East is in much worse shape. So why would you support Hillary Clinton, who carried out Barack Obama's foreign policy?
Because I think what the world needs today is stability. We're living in an increasingly unstable world. The hard right is growing tremendously in Eastern Europe and in Greece and in other parts of Europe. The hard left is growing dramatically in places like England and France. And we need stability. And I think that Hillary Clinton is more predictable, more stable. In fact, there's a leak today. I don't know if it's true or not. That in the newspaper saying that Benjamin Netanyahu, in a WikiLeaks disclosure done by Stuart Eizenstat about a conversation with Stuart Eizenstat, says that Benjamin Netanyahu actually trusts Clinton more than Donald Trump only because Donald Trump is unpredictable, and Israel and the world need predictability. So I think it's not a question of who says he or she will be better for Israel, but on balance, who would be better for a stable world? And I think a stable world is good for America, good for Israel, good for Europe. That's why I support Hillary Clinton.
Professor Alan Dershowitz here on Trending Today USA. His book is available at Amazon. It's an e-book. It's called Electile Dysfunction, a Guide for Unaroused Voters. I guess my question would be, Hillary Clinton, everybody knows what she's going to do, and it's going to stay the same it's been. But the way it's been isn't working, hasn't worked. And the same kind of accusations of, the guy's crazy, the same things that they said about Ronald Reagan, isn't it?
Well, I knew Ronald Reagan. I knew him before he was president. I never believed any of that. I always thought he was a terrific guy. He was, the head of the Screen Actors Guild. He was a governor in California. He helped to reduce inmate populations in mental hospitals and in prisons. He was a very effective governor with a proven track record. Look, there were some radical hard lefties who said that about Ronald Reagan, but look how overwhelmingly he won the election.
Right.
But
the media wasn't as crazed about him against him. And you could say some of the same things about Donald Trump. He's been a very successful businessman. He hasn't done all these crazy things people have suggested he would. He'd been on television for 15 years.
Well, he has done some of the things. I mean, what we now see, his saying that he's going to put Hillary Clinton in jail if he gets elected. That's what you see in banana republics. That's what the Iranians do, and that's what Putin does. It's not what Americans.
But what if
political opponents in prison?
Okay, is it for being? But is it for being? Now you're the lawyer here. I'm not. Is it for her being a political opponent, or is it for her committing high crimes and misdemeanors? She's committed some very serious crimes, hasn't she?
Well, the point is that it's supposed to be investigated by the Justice Department. It has been. But for the president to say, I'm going to instruct my attorney general to appoint a special prosecutor, that's just wrong. That's what Richard Nixon tried to do by creating an enemies list. And remember, his attorney general ended up going to jail. His deputy attorney ended up going to jail, and probably he would have gone to jail had he not been impeached. So,
but does it not appear that the Justice Department and the FBI didn't do their job when it came to Hillary Clinton? Again, you're the attorney.
Well, the FBI is headed by a guy who is not a Democrat. He was appointed by Republicans, served under Republicans, and I think he came to the right conclusion that it would be unprecedented to indict somebody for what she is alleged to have done. What she did was wrong, and I can't justify that. I wouldn't try to justify it. In my book, I make the case against Hillary Clinton as well as the case for her. Mm-hmm. For example, I talk about Tim Kaine, who I didn't like the fact that he walked out on Netanyahu. That's, for me, a negative mark. So for me, it's what Barney Frank used to argue, compared to what? I make a comparison between the two candidates, and for me, the biggest issue is stability and predictability. Even if things won't get a lot better, we know they're not going to get a lot worse. We know that what she's going to bring to the governance is something we can tell. She's not going to try to scuttle Obamacare. She's going to try to fix it. She's not going to try to keep out all Mexicans or Muslims. She's going to have, moderate programs. People might be a little bored by her, but boring is not the worst thing in the world when it comes to the leader of the free world and unpredictability. But again, I'm not arguing in the book electoral dysfunction for you to vote for her. I'm arguing for you to look at all the factors that should affect your vote, and you should decide how you want to vote. And many of the listeners, many of my readers will end up voting for Trump after reading my book.
Heck, the introduction starts off.
Hide my own views.
I mean, the introduction starts off. Everybody sucks. 2016, right?
That's a button that's now been circulating, and it's true. I mean, I wrote this book to so many of my friends. Homie, they don't know who to vote for. They don't want to vote for either candidate. They're very upset at the choice of candidates. So that's when I decided to write this book. Look, I'm 78 years old, and it gets harder and harder to get aroused by political candidates because I'm used to great political candidates in the past, like John Kennedy and Ronald Reagan and others. And I think many people think we're being presented with a choice. One of my friends wrote me a letter saying who's going to pick between the choice of weasels rather than the choice of evils. He doesn't like either candidate.
Yeah.
I do, but everybody's entitled to their vote. I just hope everybody votes. And I hope no one votes for third-party candidates. That's not only a wasted vote, it could turn the election against the candidate who you think on balance should be elected, or in favor of the candidate who on balance you think shouldn't be elected. That's what happened when a lot of people from the hard left voted for Ralph Nader in Florida in 2000, and those several thousand votes turned the election over to the person, George W. Bush, who certainly these people didn't want to see elected. So don't throw away your vote.
All right, Alan Dershowitz, one more quick one. You mentioned you're 78 years old. I just turned 51. I wake up, I go, really? I'm 50. I mean, are you like that too? Can you believe you made it that long?
I was the youngest guy everywhere. I was the youngest professor in Harvard's history. I graduated college at 20, and now I'm the oldest person everywhere I go. I'm married to a beautiful young woman. She's only 12 years younger than me, but still, we hang out a lot with her friends, and I'm the old guy now instead of the young guy. I can't believe it.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah. Well, I hope it stays weird for a long time for both of us.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you. Alan Dershowitz, that's his name. The book, again, go get it online at Amazon. Erectile Dysfunction, a guide for unaroused voters. According to CNN and MSNBC, Donald Trump is tearing the grand old party apart. But is it true? Well, let's talk to somebody who would know. Former Congresswoman Michele Bachmann is here. Congresswoman, welcome back to Trending Today USA. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your show.
Okay, are you really doing great, or are you getting ready to jump ship on Trump?
Are you kidding? Not at all. I am solid as a rock with Donald Trump, and why shouldn't we be?
Well, I mean, should women be abandoning Trump right now?
No, absolutely not. What we need to do is look at what a President Trump versus a President Hillary Clinton would mean for women in America, and I have absolutely no qualms whatsoever supporting him. He has come out and said the remarks that he made in a video that's now 11 years old were completely wrong and inappropriate. I believe that. I think there's probably more tapes out there because Donald Trump spent his life as a developer, but also in the entertainment business. He spent decades in the entertainment business, 17 years on the Howard Stern show. I would never listen to Howard Stern show because I know what they talk about on that show, and I don't listen to it. So I understand it from that point of view, but I've known Donald Trump personally for probably 4 to 5 years. And what I know is that what you see is what you get. He truly does want to secure America's borders. This is probably one of the top issues for our country. We have been destroying ourselves by having an open border policy. We know now from WikiLeaks that that's exactly what Mrs. Clinton promised all of her billionaire friends on Wall Street she would continue doing for them. Why? Because they want to keep wages low for the American worker so they can get richer. Donald Trump wants just the opposite. He wants to raise wages for the average American, and to do that, he wants to close our borders. But also, equally as important, he wants to make sure that we begin vetting people before they come into the United States, in particular, people who have been coming in from the Middle East and Africa. And I think that we can all agree that national safety has to come first. There's only one candidate who will do that, and that's Donald Trump.
All right. Congresswoman Michele Bachmann is here on Trending Today USA with Rusty Humphries. Congresswoman, you and I, we've known each other, I don't know, about 10 years, maybe longer. I'd consider you a friend. Would you consider me a friend?
I would consider you a friend. Okay. Yes, indeed.
So if I ask you a question that's a little bit off, you know I'm doing it out of just wanting to know the information, and I'm not trying to be insulting.
Are you kidding? I go on with Chris Matthews and CNN all the time. You can't possibly be insulting.
All right, here I go. You're a good-looking woman. Has Donald Trump ever hit on you?
No, he has not ever hit on me. And as a matter of fact, he invited me to come up to his penthouse and have breakfast up there with him. It was while I was running for president of the United States 4 years ago. He was a perfect gentleman. His wife and his baby son were down on the floor below, and he showed me the artwork. He showed me where he stood when the Twin Towers came down, and he watched that from his apartment. He was just a perfect gentleman, and he's funny. He's a very funny guy and an interesting guy, and one of the quickest studies I've ever seen. His mind goes about 1,000 miles an hour.
In what way do you mean quick study?
He's he's smart. He picks up on things. He learns new things. And he's what I would call a street smart guy. He's also a book smart guy. But for him, he's very pragmatic, and this is what I mean by that. He wants to get to the best solution fast. He doesn't just goof around. And one thing about government, they take years and years and years to fix things. That's not Donald Trump. Donald Trump sees the problem. He gets smart people around him. He gets the right solution, the best way to do it, the most cost effective. And he does it. He just gets it done. That's what we need. We need somebody who's just going to get it done. Right. And he's completely different than normal politicians. I think that's why people like him.
Maybe we could call him the Larry the Cable Guy of politicians. He's going to get her done.
He's going to get her done, is right.
What do you think about the way that audio was leaked? Is it all fair in politics, or was that just pretty slimy, especially when it came from Dan Sr., who is buddies with the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, well, that's really a bad deal if it's true. Dan Senior denies it, and Jerry Falwell Jr., who I also know is a friend of mine, said that he had heard 6 or 8 weeks ago that something like this was going to happen. I think that there'll be more. One thing that a candidate realizes is that October is called October surprise because there's usually bombs that get dropped to take you out, and quite often they're not true. And that's what happens because a false narrative is spun in order to turn people away from a candidate. I think, again, about every possible thing that could be lobbed against Donald Trump has been lobbed against him. He has impossible odds that he's fighting. Bill O'Reilly came out 3 days ago and said at least 3 major networks have told everyone within the network, you have one job, and that's to destroy Donald Trump. So how do you get around that? When you have the major media sources who know that their job is on the line if they don't destroy Donald Trump, that's what we're dealing with right now. But again, the beautiful thing is that we have alternative media. We have shows like yours, Rusty Humphreys, and we have voices that we can listen to so that we keep our heads on straight and not lose our wits and realize this is about us. The election isn't about Hillary Clinton. It isn't about Donald Trump. It's about us. It's about the kind of life we want. And I have lived in Washington as a member of Congress for 8 years. I have run for president of the United States. And I can tell you with full assurance, I'm a full-throated, unapologetic conservative. I can easily get behind Donald Trump. I'm also a woman of faith. I'm a born-again believer in Jesus Christ and have been for 42 years. And I have no problem supporting this man 100% as a Christian conservative woman who is also a constitutional conservative.
All right, Michele Bachmann here. They went after you pretty hard too when the media did when you were running for president. Stuff just came out of the woodwork, didn't it?
Oh yeah, and lies come out, all sorts of things happen, and it is amazing. The reason why this happens is to make the individual toxic. They want to create an ick factor around each person. As a matter of fact, one thing that happened to my husband, which was horrible, is they released stories that my husband was gay. And can you imagine what that's like to be a man? Now, he's a father of 5 children,
right?
And our 23 foster children. It didn't matter. There were also stories they released that our oldest son was gay. It's like, why would you do this? The reason why they did it is because they wanted to kick away evangelical support. I was an unapologetic evangelical, and they were trying to create an ick factor around me so that evangelicals wouldn't support me. And there's enough people who just wonder. Also, there were false rumors that were floated that my husband and I were divorced or we were getting a divorce. Just a few months ago, I saw on the internet those same stories were rolling out there again. They do that to destroy your influence. When it came out that I was going to be supporting Donald Trump, conveniently, that's when those stories came out again. Man. And that's what people do. It's really a dirty business, but they float a lot of lies and a lot of false stories to create an ick factor so people won't want to support somebody like Donald Trump. But they're false.
From a human point of view, you're a human being. Does that just destroy your insides, just break your heart, or are you tough enough and that didn't even bug me?
Well, I think I'm tough enough, and the reason why I'm tough enough is because I know who I am, and I know what I believe, and I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I've never done what I do to get pats on the back from editorial boards or from TV personalities. That's not the point. I'm a fighter, but I'm a fighter who knows what she's talking about. I'm well-read. I know why I believe what I believe, and I'm committed to that fight because I like Donald Trump, want to see this country come back again to its greatness. I know that we can do that. I know it's possible. But does it hurt? It hurts when I saw it happen to my husband. It hurts when I saw it happen to my kids. Yeah. Our family paid a personal price for it. We had there's an effort to try and bankrupt us with our business twice by the gay community, as a matter of fact, because I was standing for the marriage amendment to define marriage as a man or a woman. So, but I don't.
Orson Scott Card told me once, he's an author, and he said that if you came out against gay marriage, that they don't want to just destroy your reputation. They want to destroy your chance to make a living and feed your family.
Yeah. Well, that was true for us. They tried to do that twice to bankrupt us, and they almost did. But, I have a wonderful husband who agreed with me on what I was trying to do, and we trusted God, and we're not rich people at all, but we're still standing, and we still have our principles, and we're grateful for that. We're strong as a family, and that's the best riches you could have anyway. So we're just fine.
Great. Last question for you, Congresswoman Michele Bachmann. Why do you think the establishment hates Donald Trump so much?
I'll tell you why. It's because the establishment is all in with moving toward a one-world government. Now, that sounds weird, but it's true. They believe in the idea of no borders, and what that means is everybody's incomes will go down, and we'll have a few billionaires across the world.
And Hillary did talk about that in those speeches, didn't she?
She did. Yeah, she did. She promised Goldman Sachs that that's what she would do. So these are politicians who are delivering for billionaires. And the billionaires want to have a one-world economic system and a one-world political system so that they get to call the shots, and we lose essential freedoms that we've taken for granted for years. That's the big difference in this election. Donald Trump still believes in an old-fashioned America where we, the little people, get to vote and have our say. Hillary Clinton is completely different. She sold her soul essentially to the Goldman Sachs of the world, and that's who she dances to. And so that's the difference in this election. And it's almost like another revolutionary war. So it's up to people like your listeners to make sure that they get out there, vote for a Trump, and do everything that they can to vote down ballot to make sure that we don't lose this country.
And what do you say, one more last one, what do you say to those people like John McCain who are coming out against, and Paul Ryan, who are coming out against Donald Trump?
Well, I would tell them that they need to admit that they were wrong, that they made a big mistake, and that what they're going to do is make sure that we win, and that they do that by defeating Hillary Clinton. And so they need to back the nominee. I mean, you couldn't have a more flawed nominee than Hillary Clinton, who should have been in jail for decades already. Decades she should have been in jail. And for the Democrats to put their arms around her, and for people to come against Donald Trump for some untoward comments he made 11 years ago, it's crazy. So that's what they need to do. They need to say, look, I was wrong, and I'll admit it, and I'm going to get behind this guy because I love this country. That's what they need to do.
Congresswoman Michele Bachmann, do you have a site online you want people to go to?
Yeah, they can go to MichelleBachmann.com. Join me on Facebook and Twitter. I have about 1 million Facebook followers and about 250,000 on Twitter. And we just have a wonderful, rollicking conversation. I must post at least 8 times a day on the latest things that are happening. So it's really, it is, I call it the happening place to be. So come and join me, and we'll have a lot of fun together. But Rusty, it's always terrific to talk to you. I know you have a wonderful audience.
Well, thank you very much, Congresswoman, and we'll be talking to you again soon. Thanks for being here and Trending Today USA. Well, there you go. There's a good program there. I have some, our next show is going to be awesome, too. We will have Bill Clinton's possible love child. I don't know if you'd call it a love child, right? Illegitimate child. He's upset. He's hurt. His feelings are hurt. Danny Williams Clinton. Also, Dinesh D'Souza's coming up next time. Michael Reagan and more. Make sure you tell your friends, would you please, about the Rusty Humphries Rebellion. Go online, like it on iTunes, and subscribe to it. It makes a big difference. Also, if you would go to our websites, it's usaradio.com and trendingtodayyusa.com. And my own first personal Facebook page. Love it when you go there and like it and make sure it comes up on your news feed. That's Talk to Rusty. Talk, the number 2 Rusty. Another important thing, these people bring this podcast to you every week, sometimes a couple of times a week. It is Australian Dream. Australian Dream Arthritis Pain Relief Cream and Back Pain Relief Cream, available at all great retailers, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and others. Go find it and get out of that pain, would you? All right, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you. May God bless you, and may God bless America. This is the Rusty Humphreys Rebellion.